Yay! I always do that. I always start the show, and you always look at me
I
and
just
laugh.
look at you like,
huh?
oh!
And our dog is going crazy. It's probably animals or something outside. That's just how it goes. Welcome, everybody. So excited for tonight's show. I say that every week, and I also say what I'm about to say, but tonight's show is one of a kind. I don't think I've ever done anything like this. Had two guests from two different parts of the United States. One is traveling international. The other one just got back home. Both just competed in Hardrock this last weekend. One won Hardrock 100 this last weekend, and the other one suffered through it like a champ. I am joined by two incredible athletes tonight. They've both been on the show before. They're both very awesome guests, and that's why I'm also very excited. Before I introduce them, of course, my wonderful wife,
Kim Newberry. I'll be in the chat room as always.
As always.
You guys are very entertaining tonight already.
Oh, no, are they? Oh, dear. If you have questions throughout tonight's broadcast for either of my guests, please ask them in the chat room. Kim will be wonderful and take those questions, and we'll be able to ask them throughout the show. That's the wonderful thing about being live. And hopefully Gus, our wonderful adventure dog, is yeah, he's totally good now. So tonight's guests, Andy Jones-Wilkins of Andy Jones-Wilkins fame, will be on tonight's show talking about his experience at Hardrock 100, and I'm really excited to hear his stories. It sounds like he was having quite the sufferfest. And Hardrock 100 co-champion, and I can't wait to hear about this, from an airport, from Denver International Airport, Mr. Jason Schlarb. So sit back, relax, get ready for tonight's show. I've got a very large beer, and it's probably going to be very intoxicating. Here we go, guys. Ginger Runner Live, episode number 125. Happy Monday. Let's start. Ginger Runner. Yes! Yay! So excited about tonight's show. Two incredible guests, incredible athletes. I've had them both on the show. Oh, you already lost your headphone. I've had them both on the show prior, individually on their own episodes. Really excited to have them both kind of in the same room tonight to talk about vastly different experiences at the world-famous Hardrock 100 that just occurred this last weekend. Last week, if you remember Ginger Runner Live, I had the race director of this race, Dale Garland, on the show. We talked all about it. Hardrock 100 is this incredible mountain race that I can't even begin to describe it. If you do not know what the race is, I encourage you to go watch last week's episode just to get familiar with it, and then come back and rewatch this one. My guest tonight, Andy Jones-Wilkins. How are you, my friend? It is so awesome to have you back on the show.
Good to be here, Ethan and Kim. It's great, and I'm a little wiped. I took a red eye back last night from Denver, and I'm getting ready to go back to work tomorrow. But I'm psyched to be on the show.
I can't believe you have to go back to work tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to put normal shoes on. Let's put it that way.
I can imagine your feet are swollen, and I can imagine the body is a little beat up after this weekend.
Yes, indeed. Maybe more beat up than I bargained for.
And honestly, I can't wait to hear Andy Jones-Wilkins talk about his experience at Hardrock this weekend. Just following online, which is what Kim and I did pretty much all weekend, sitting at our laptops, refresh. It sounds like it was quite an excruciating experience, and I can't wait to hear Andy tell his story. Also joining us tonight, you already see his little head in the corner of the live show here, from an airport, sitting, waiting for his delayed flight. We weren't anticipating being able to get Jason tonight, but because his flight was delayed, he's like, hey, man, I can do this. I can do it from an airport, all good. And I was like, we got to get Jason on, too. This would be amazing. It is the one and only Mr. Jason Schlarb, your Hardrock 100 champion. You can unmute the mic. Sorry.
All right. No. I was ready. My fingers right there.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
Dude, it's awesome to have you on the show tonight. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm coming back to life. I'm feeling a little better and better. So, yeah.
Now, because I have these two gentlemen on the show tonight, Andy, I of course want to leave the floor open to you too if you have questions for Jason, because I know that you are a great interviewer. And you were also out there experiencing all the exact same footsteps that Jason experienced. Jason, now, as this is kind of the big question. You are the co-winner of the Hardrock 100. What was that experience like for 85, 90% of Hardrock, running with someone else and then coming down towards the finish line? And did you guys have a conversation at some point of like, we're doing this together, or how did that work out?
You know, I would have never guessed that I would have approached the race or had the race that I did. You know, coincide with Xavier and for quite a bit of it, and then a lot of it with Kilian. Typically, I'm one in ultras from 50K all the way to 100 miles to rather be by myself, because I like to do exactly what I want to do every step of the way, and I get too stressed out about people being around. But gosh, this was the exception, man. So yeah, we ended up starting out really conservative. We went out like 20, 30 minutes slower than course record pace for that first couple hours, maybe 3 hours, something like that. And just talking with Nick Clark, Jeff Browning, whatever, and Xavier and Kilian were up ahead, and I slowly inched my way up to those guys. And you know, was so kind of I don't know, like enthused to just stand next to these guys that
Yeah.
you know, I mean, they're both, you know, in the hero status for me. You know, Xavier, well, I guess Kilian too, UTMB winners, and then there's no need for introduction for Kilian. So, you know, just to be able to chat and talk with them, and you know, that was something that was like a kind of a check box for goals in my life anyways. So so yeah, I just continued with that and held on for a while. But I don't want to tell you the whole story. It would take way too long. It'd be the whole show. So
Well, what I'm really curious about is, I mean, you've been training really hard. One of the most fascinating things is you actually skied the entire Hardrock course earlier this year. We didn't get a chance to get you on the show to talk about it, and we can in the future, because I'm sure that alone is also a full episode. But skiing the Hardrock course and then coming back and running it, do you think that was great prep for you, or was it a completely different experience covering that same trail with snow and all that?
it really, it wasn't you know, it wasn't super advantageous by skiing it at all. In fact, it's more of a theme of not running a lot that I think became the advantage come, you know, July 15th. And so, you know, I went to Teruel in February. I did Marathon des Sables in Morocco in April. I never ran more than 40, 50 miles a week this whole, like, December to April timeframe. And so,
Wow.
yeah, and you know, I had these big events, but you know, I kind of did them and did okay at them. Besides Ski the Hardrock, that one was a real grueler. That was everything I had. But the other events I kind of just did for fun and wasn't in, like, you know, really great shape for. So, you know, that low volume, low impact, take it easy, let my mind, my body, my soul kind of refresh, and then bam, May came and it was time to really focus and get into it. Was part of the recipe.
So really, your training for this didn't really begin until May.
That's correct, man. I mean, I was in good
Wow.
aerobic physical shape, but I was fresh and excited to really get after it, and that was one of the big keys to doing well for me.
That's really exciting to hear. And Andy, I can't wait to talk to you about your training block as well, coming back from hip resurfacing, and it just blows my mind what you guys are able to do. In this case, Jason, was there any point in the race when you were like, man, I'm redlining too hard here, or I'm trying to keep up with these guys, I should probably throttle back, or did you just feel good the whole time?
The cliff notes were that about 20 some miles into it, after, you know, just a huge smile on my face and running with my heroes, I started to say, you know what, this is a little too spicy. You know, I need a little alone time, guys. And it was getting kind of hot, and down into Uray, Kilian and Xavier both gapped me by about 10 minutes. And it was a low point. It was a little bit of a scary point. I kind of was starting to come to grips with, I've been a little bit of the cat and mouse on the mouse side of the Kilian game, which he's played quite a few athletes in the past, both at Hardrock and other big races. And I was like, okay, get back to focus. Let's go for some time goals. Third place, maybe Xavier will come back to me, and that was kind of my reality. But I took on a pacer, and on the march up to Handy's, bam, things really turned around, and there I was running with the leader, Kilian, with Xavier really hitting a low spot and losing eventually an hour on us.
Hey, Jason, didn't Rock Horton's magic elixir at the top of Kroger's Canteen help a little bit too?
His magic elixir absolutely worked, but Rock has become a bit of a good friend. I see him at Run Rabbit Run. He's helped support me with some product from Black Diamond. Has been a friend for quite a while. But when I got up to Kroger's Canteen, there was no tequila.
You should have been running back with me, man.
I know.
There was plenty back where I was.
I didn't drink it all.
The magic elixir was a huge hug, and I was just like, Rock, I've been waiting for like half a decade to give you this hug up here. And those guys were so excited, they're telling me to get out. And they never offered me any tequila. So like I was contemplating, and I was like, you know what? Rock means so much to me, and he is such a legend that I'll take the tequila shot, and if I puke, maybe it'll cost me 5 minutes, and I'm willing to do it. But I didn't ask for it. It wasn't offered, and maybe that's a good thing, and maybe a reason to come back next year.
I was just going to say, you did not get your money's worth, Jason. You have got to go back next year. You got to get that shot of tequila. So at this point, you just mentioned it, the cat and mouse game that Kilian plays, or I'm guessing what you're referring to is running with the front of the pack or with the first couple of guys, and then at some point just breaking away. Did you feel at any point that he was going to do this to you, or could you sense that he was also pushing as hard as you and just didn't have anything else to give? Like, was there a common point that you both reached?
There was, and I'll be frank. There's two things that I really stick to in hundreds, and that one is I'm not really writing down splits and focusing on that. I really just like to stay within myself, and second part, too, is that I usually don't run with other people because I don't like to be distracted, but I broke that rule already. But the third thing was that Kilian left me, Xavier left me, and they were way ahead, and I ended up catching them. And Kilian had actually left Xavier, and so Kilian's low point after watching his interview with Brian after the race was going up towards Handy's, and that's when I caught him. And so, and then the other part of that kind of answer to that question is, once we started hitting some of the aid stations after Handy's, it dawned on us that we were actually going faster than course record pace. So, I want to say that 22 something is pushing Kilian, and so we were in a good place both together, pushing. He said that I was pushing him, and he certainly was pushing me. I was a little bit stronger on the uphills. And I had to kind of struggle to stay with him on the down, but there's no conversation of, oh, I'm just going to stick with you, or vice versa from either one of us. And it was just kind of, we're going to play this out. We're going to see how it goes. We're both at the same pace. I feel like he would have left me had I had some struggling, and quite frankly, I would have done the same. But finally, the crux of the evening came at Cunningham. We were crossing the creek, and Kilian basically said, hey, why don't you go ahead if you're feeling better? And I looked over him and said, oh, no. Kilian, you can probably go faster. You go ahead. And he kind of turned and said, you know what, man, we've spent the whole night together. It doesn't make any sense to me to, finish a matter of minutes separate. Let's bring this in together. And I looked back, I was like, dude, that would be the biggest honor, and it does feel right to me. I want to share this with you. And from that point, we pushed all the way up Little Giants or whatever. And from there was the next goal. I told Kilian, hey, we're going to run together, but would you be willing to push down this? Because I want to meet one of my other hero, Kyle Skaggs, times 23:23 at Hardrock. And he said, absolutely, let's do it. We hammered down, going 6-something pace, doing incredible speed, at the fastest I ran the whole course probably.
Wow.
So fast that my pacer said, you know what, we're close to going under 23 hours. If you guys go fast now, you can get under the 23 mark. And bam, we met up with Emily Forsberg at the ski area, and she's like, what the hell are you guys doing? You're like sprinting through here. You're running together, aren't you? And we're like, Kilian looks over and says, we must get under 23. And so, lo and behold, by 2 minutes or something, we sprinted in and held hands and kissed the rock and had the moment of my life.
As a spectator, as a fan of the sport, it was one of those, this can't actually be happening. This isn't how this was supposed to end, because we've been following it for so long. But at the same point, as a fan of this sport, I didn't want it to end any other way. And I know that there's online chatter from people like, oh, they should have raced. Even if you had to win by a couple of seconds. And a part of me is like, no, I've never been to Hardrock. I've never ran it, obviously. But I feel like this race in particular, it's not about that as much as it is what you guys demonstrated, which is this incredible moment that you two had, almost an unspoken moment of we're sharing this together. We've shared the entire experience together. Why not share the end together as well? So I obviously wasn't witness to it, but it was such a cool thing to follow online and stuff. Do you feel shorted by not having the win to yourself? Is this a better experience for you? And then there was a question in the chat room. I just saw it scoot by. Do you both get an invite to run again next year?
Right after the race was done, that was one of the first questions. It was like, Dale, you got to let us both in, right? And he's like, we're going to find a way. And he was quoted by that in the papers and for Durango and Denver Post and such. So we both get to come back. But you hit right on the head with that, Ethan. The whole week, I knew this was Hardrock run. This is, not the race, the run director, et cetera, they don't give any consideration to elites. And, I've personally kind of struggled a little bit with that, wanting to really get into Hardrock and happening to be a fast guy. But after being around the community and hearing the stories and watching Matt Trappy's video, it really sunk in. And it was, I can't capture it here in maybe words very well, but if you, I know Andy knows what I'm talking about, and it just felt really, really good. And then the second part of that, too, is that this is the most beautiful course I've been on in the world, and, it didn't feel like I needed to go and, prove that I could maybe beat Kilian, or Kilian didn't feel like he could, show that he can run 22:39 and better his time. We really were just having, except for that last 10K, we were having such a magic bromance, to use a term I enjoy, that it really it didn't even cross my mind, and it still doesn't cross my mind. It certainly helps that we ran the second fastest time in history, and I think part of the reason was because we were really just in lock together, and just absolutely the synergy was there. It was just something one of a kind I've never experienced before.
Andy, did you get word of their finish at any point during the race, or what's going through your mind when you hear about these two guys finishing together? The bromance. Yeah. What goes through your mind?
My son Carson told me about it. My all kids are they're 18, 16, and 13, and they're big fans of the sport. They've been growing up. I think my first 100-miler, Carson, who's going off to college next year, was 2. In fact, he's going to college in Durango, which would be nice because I'll have an excuse to get out there more often than even now. But he told me about it. I forget where I might have been, Sherman or so. Anyway, one of the things that we hear so much these days about, athletic teams or schools or companies is that they're like a family, and I think that cliche is thrown around a lot, like, oh, we're just a big family, and it's kind of a throwaway for, we all just get along and don't fight and everything's good. Hardrock, I've been there 6 times, twice as a runner, 4 other times, really does, and it starts with Dale. Dale Garland, who said was on the show last week, is a fatherly figure, himself a middle school history teacher in Durango, just a salt-of-the-earth guy. All the veterans who've run, Kirk App finished his 22nd, Blake Wood got his 20th this year, Betsy Kalmeyer her 17th. This is the family. And guys like Jason and I who've been around, 5, 7, 10 years, we're like the little babies of the family compared to some of those folks, and it helps the perspective. So when I heard about Kilian and Jason coming across the line together and kissing the rock together, I was like, perfect, just perfect. And I hope there is some criticism of it, because then what we can do is respond to that criticism and say, you know what, there's no tape to be broken here, there's no battle to be won. This is Hardrock. This is the community. This is honoring the miners who worked here tirelessly for decades, and it's fitting that it should end this way.
I think that's probably the best comment I've heard in regard to the whole thing, is that you're glad that there's controversy, and I think about it, I'm like, yeah, so am I. As the sparkle in the dad's eye of Hardrock, if you guys are still the children. Does that make sense? Maybe
yeah.
Not. Yeah. That's exactly how I would look at it, is bring on the controversy, because this race is about something else, and having Dale on last week was hugely beneficial in getting that out, just so people are aware that this is a community that takes place once a year, and it's a really emotional and incredible connection that everyone that runs it and is part of the community has. So it's pretty incredible. I know, Jason, we only have you for a couple of minutes. We have live questions. So, Kim, what have people been asking of Jason while we've got him before he has to get on a flight to go to UTMB? Is that right? Are you going to train in France?
Yeah, me and this little guy right here, we're headed to Geneva, and we're going to spend the next few months hanging out and eventually doing UTMB, as you said.
Never ends. It's insane. It's amazing. But yeah, we've got live questions. We've got hundreds of people watching live right now. So what do we got, babe?
Question from Nathaniel for Jason. What's your nutrition technique for a race like Hardrock 100, other than tequila shots?
Well, I'll be pretty general about this, because this is like 5 more shows. But I do a low-carb diet in general. I try to maximize my fat burning. I'm not religious. I don't preach it. I just make some changes to make myself a little bit better. Fat burner, and I think that's a key to these 100 miles for me, particularly these mountain ones, compared to like say Western States. That's half the time practically. Secondly, I use, this is going to sound like a sales pitch, but it's not. I've been using Vitargo for about 4 or 5 years now, and it is a fractionalized barley synthetic carbohydrate, basically, and it absorbs almost 40% faster than maltodextrin or glucose, and I never once had a stomach issue. And I mix it into my water. It tastes like watermelon or pink lemonade. I put that in there, and I was fueled well and didn't have any problems with fueling the whole time. And I think that's part of my secret, using that stuff, and then all the other elements too. But that's my nutritional plan.
Do you end up taking big handfuls of real food, like sandwiches or any of that kind of stuff, or maybe?
Or pie?
Or
I feel like I read something like you guys are having pie.
Later in the race, I start to supplement with some savory stuff. I took a bison bar. Epic makes these bison bars. I took some other products they make. I'll take a little sample of watermelon, some oranges. I had some bacon at where's that? Sherman. We sat down, and the part of the reason we didn't hit the course record is that Kilian and I, because we were together, we were like, you know what? We're not racing. We're not, scared about somebody coming into the aid station or being in front of us. Let's eat. let's like drink a whole bunch of water. And, like we'd look back and forth at each other and kind of like, oh yeah, he's still going, I'll go then. And so I ate a little bit more than I usually do, but this was also, it's a long 100. So yeah, I ate a little bit of extra good stuff, some potato chips, etc. in that last third of the race.
Nice. What else we got, Kim?
Question from Running Man 26.2 in the chat room. Question for Jason. If you had a chance to finish with Kilian again, would you just say, F it, let's race?
Yeah, it's hard to recreate that, and Hardrock is one of a kind, like Andy says. Most other races, to be kind of right in the same groove as we were is so damn unlikely. But, it would be more likely that Kilian would decide that and slow down for me or for somebody else than I think both Kilian and I being on the same page, especially for a shorter race. I think the longer stuff's the place where I can hang with him.
What else we got, Kim?
Another question from Nathaniel for Jason. Do you prefer low volume training and race buildup, or was this a one-off?
I am... That's maybe one of the other secrets. My average mileage was somewhere around 75 to 80 between May and July 15th. I topped out 1 week of 95 miles. I did about 14 to 22,000 feet of climbing per week. That's not going to win any awards. That's not going to impress anybody, I don't think, on the show. But, it's consistent. I did it for 6 to 7 weeks and felt good. I came in fresh. I did not come in tired or setting records in my training, and it makes me scared. And because I look at other people that are doing a lot more than I am, and I think, gosh, I'm not going to be able to hang with them. I look at the guys in San Francisco, and they're running 6-7 minutes on their per mile on their long runs, and I'm doing 11 or 12. So it's a little scary, but it works for me, and I think it works for a lot of people, but it's just not as sexy.
We talk about that a lot actually on the show, is what people's weekly mileages and totals and stuff, and it varies across the range. And Jason, you're not the only person that has lower mileage, maybe higher intensity, or maybe more climbing or whatever. But it's a school of thought that I think I have been living for quite a number of months, and it seems to be working out for me. But I love hearing that sort of thing. Do we have any more questions for Jason before we gotta let him go?
Yeah, question from Amber in the chat room. Jason, besides crossing the finish line, what was another memorable part of Hardrock?
Another memorable part was, this is the first time I've used pacers, so I was able to share the run with Paul Hamilton, who's one of my best friends, particularly in the running community. To have him there and see how excited he was for what we were doing. And I had another pacer, Andy, that joined me as well for 10 miles and then 10 miles at the end. So that was really a highlight for me too. And I was a little bit scared how that was going to work out, but it was a positive experience. I went Ice Lakes. I will brag a little bit here. On Grant Swamp, I beat Kilian down the technical scree scramble on film to people chanting USA. So yeah. So that was pretty awesome. Cool. Not that he couldn't beat me any other day on a descent like that, but I was in the moment, and I'm not gonna pretend I didn't love it.
That is awesome, man. Well, obviously you're still in the airport. Your flight's coming up. I think we're going to let you go, but I would love to get you back on the show in the future. Obviously, you've got a lot of training, and you'll be in Europe for a while. But first of all, Jason, well done.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely incredible to follow you over the course of this weekend and see how everything unfolded. The race of your life, insane to follow. I'm so glad it ended the way it did. Have a blast, travel safe, and tell your son he's awesome for being so patient.
Yeah, he's a good boy.
Andy, anything for Jason?
Jason, good luck. I love the way you hosted the winter crossing of the Hardrock when we were up at Silverton on Wednesday. If you haven't had a chance to hear about that, I think it's available now for free on Vimeo. Is it, Jason? A film about their 4-day trip around the Hardrock course on skis with some incredible footage, and that was a real honor to be a part of that. See that film on a couple days before the race. So a plug for Jason's film. Go check it out. And have a good trip.
The trailer's out. It's schlarbwolf.com, and the full 10-minute will be free this time, and it'll be on the same place, and that'll be about August 1st. So I hope you guys can enjoy that. It was a great deal. I also want to say hats off to the, I'm so happy to be part of the Hardrock family. It's so wonderful, feels so good. I'm still in the glow of that, and all the people that made that happen. So, and thank you for letting me talk about it on your show, Ethan. And it's an honor, and I hope that the airport scene wasn't too tough.
Not at all. I mean, honestly, when you reached out today and you're like, my flight's delayed, I was like, yes, we're getting Jason from an airport. You are notorious on this show for coming to us live from really cool or interesting locations. I think the last time you were outside of a library and there was a guy playing guitar, and we have that scene.
That's right.
It's great, man. It's great. And keep the mullet rocking. I've been trying to grow out the back of mine, kind of pulling a little too hard.
Yeah.
Kim's allowed me to
you got Felix here.
Yeah, it runs in the family. He's like, don't touch me. What are you doing? Well, dude, travel safe. It was great to have you on. We'll get you on again soon, and once that movie drops on August 1st, maybe we'll do a show about that, because that's something I've been wanting to talk to you about for a long time. Travel safe, dude. Yeah. Thank you for jumping on, and congratulations.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Ethan. See you, Andy. Bye-bye.
See you. Good travels.
So now, Jason, just hang up. All you have to do is hang up. Great. He's gone. Now we can talk about him, Andy. This is where we can talk all about Jason. Actually, this is kind of a cool two-parter episode because Jason had the race of his life. And Andy, gathering information from you and from other people, it sounds like you had the opposite of the race of your life. Maybe one of the tougher races that you mentioned?
I did. It was I'll be frank, it was the hardest day of running I've ever had. Maybe the hardest day of living I've ever had.
I can't even begin to imagine.
And I don't entirely know why. I only 46 hours ago, to put that in perspective, and hopped on a plane and came back home. 30-second, 100-mile race. It took me 41 hours and 51 minutes. My previous longest effort was my first Hardrock, 48:09. So I was out there a long time. I'm not making any excuses. I just struggled. I struggled. From the first climb up Putnam to that descent that Jason beat Kilian down to Grant Swamp to the slog up Oscars. Even as early as mile 12, my crew was looking at me and sensed, I think, some anxiety, perhaps a little fear, perhaps a little insecurity, and even vulnerability about my abilities. This is interesting in the context of the fact that it had nothing to do with my surgically repaired hip. As you know, I had surgery almost 10 months ago today to repair a full-blown arthritic left hip, and was worried I'd never be able to run again. So I trained with a hip on my shoulder, and am certainly proud of my fitness. But I have to say, the race has left me with way more questions than answers. And I think when you are a 48-year-old guy trying to make it through life, if you can have experiences that do that, then maybe you're still living.
Absolutely. And what you're describing, I mean, you've had a completely successful ultra running career. You're renowned for never having a DNF. You still, by the way, don't have a DNF. which should also put that effort into perspective that, yes, you were out there, and I know that you were very closely removed to it, but you still gutted it out for 41 hours and got it done. That's testament to you, your character, and your ability to do these things. I'm constantly impressed by you and your resume, dude. And last time we had you on right before my first 100-miler, and I went into that race terrified. Our conversation did not help that, because I knew that talking to someone who has as much experience as you and putting things into a more realistic perspective, you should have a little level of fear and anxiety and stuff going into your first. For this one, you maybe kind of walk me through some of the training stuff, because yes, you had your hip resurface. For those that don't know, Andy Jones-Wilkins, a very seasoned ultra runner, 3,200. What?
Oh no.
Oh yeah, 3,200 mile finishes. Just had a hip resurfaced in January. Was it January or December, Andy? September. That's right.
Yeah.
Training didn't begin until January. Is that correct?
That's right. Right.
Okay. So you really only had, January through July to kind of build from zero, from like the ability to walk to running a 100-miler, which I think is insane. So this buildup in mileage, did you do much altitude work? Was it all in Virginia mountains? And then did you get out to Hardrock early? I know we saw you at States. Was there training and stuff going on up there?
So I did a little bit of the Hypoxico tent here in Virginia, but not much. And I did travel to Colorado and Flagstaff and Western States, and spent probably a cumulative about 2-3 weeks at altitude. But and I certainly think lack of altitude acclimation was part of my my challenge at Hardrock this past weekend. I also found that for whatever reason, I wasn't running with joy. I'm always an optimistic, glass half full, joyful runner. And just looking at some of the photos and videos from the aid stations, I was a little bit, I kind of was pissed off. I was a little bit frustrated, and with my pacer, Scott Wolf, who's a dear friend of mine. And so something was a bit off. And you know what? Maybe it serves me right. Maybe so now I'm 31 out of 32 for being a cheerful, happy runner, and I'm 1 for 32 of being a total jerk. But Ethan, I'm glad you talked about dropping, because it never entered my mind to drop. But I will say that after I picked up Scott in Ouray, which is mile 43, we were moving pretty well, and I felt for the first time during the day that I was getting into a little bit of a competitive mindset. Some of the names of fellows who I've competed with before, Nick Curry and Scott Jaime and Timothy Olson, were all at the engineer aid station when I arrived, and I felt like, okay, and it was right around sunset, and it's right around mile 51 or so. So it's halfway in. We got a big climb coming up. I was like, okay, game on. And lo and behold, within about 45 minutes, I just started to lose energy. My hamstrings started to seize up, and my one remaining strength as an ultra runner, my downhills, left me. And so on the descent into Grouse, which is a nice 3-mile road descent from about 55 to 58, I was forced into a shuffle. And at that point, I knew, wow, and I could just see Jaime and Corey and Olson's lights, going off into the distance. And I knew the competitive part of the day was over. Little did I know that, the even survival part of the day was almost over too.
Yeah. So what ended up unfolding after that point? Was it I can't imagine it was, you had no lack of training. I following you, I know that you had every amount of training that you could possibly cram in, and the buildup was solid. Was it a nutritional thing? Was it just weird things happening and altitude-based stuff that kind of ended up swallowing you later in the race?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think it would be hard to say that I was overtrained, having just done a 6-month buildup, but I do think, in contrast to Jason, 5 100-mile-plus weeks over about an 8-week period probably took its toll. I probably arrived at the starting line fatigued. I think some work life stress. I switched jobs on July 1st. Might have had a factor. Oldest son graduating from high school, kind of relationships changing and evolving in his life and in our lives. I think there are some external factors, perhaps. But also I just began to feel a lack of will, which is I feel a lack of will sometimes to clean up the garage. I feel a lack of will sometimes to unload the dishwasher, but I rarely feel a lack of will to run. And so when that crept in at mile 58 at Grouse Gulch, I distinctly remember this moment. I'd been there about 5 minutes, which was about my typical aid station time. And I got my pack on and I started to stand up and I said, I just want to sit back down. And I took my pack off. I sat back down. I looked up and saw the lights going up Handy's Peak. And the light switched from, racing to running to just getting through. It was a sad time, but I had 42 miles to go. I had about 30 hours to do it. So I was going to do that. Little did I know I would need, 23 of those hours. But the determination took over for the sadness, and I soldiered on.
I can't. Was this the first time that you've ever felt that in a race? I know you're a competitive guy. You've won races. You've placed top 10 in multiple states. Was this the first time that you really felt that lack of will?
Yeah, I actually felt more than the lack of will. I felt despair. I've felt lack of will in races where I've gone from maybe being able to win or being able to be in the top 10 to being able to, break 24 at Western States or something like that. But right. I've never been in a place where I was literally going to be moving at 1 mile an hour and stopping to catch my breath, and frankly losing confidence in my own ability. One of the things that I've prided myself in, I'm not a natural specimen of an athlete, but I've prided myself in being a plugger and someone who can use confidence and optimism and hope and love and joy to get through. And those things were fleeting in those waning hours at Hardrock. And I really had to dig deep. Physically, it was terrible. I couldn't take a deep breath. Mentally and psychologically, I was completely checked out. So I had to supersede both the physical, the emotional, and the psychological just to get through. And my pacer couldn't help me anymore. He'd been trying for 20 hours.
Right. The
aid station person who could do it is me. And I was compromised and depleted. And Scott Jaime, good old friend of mine, 9-time finisher at Hardrock, he gave me the greatest compliment at the end of the award ceremony. He's like, dude, 99.9% of the people feeling that would have dropped out. They would have lost hope and, they would have said, okay, I'm hopeless. I'll take the car ride back. And I thought that was a great compliment. Maybe I should have. I don't feel sick right now. I haven't thrown up. I don't have a fever. I'm going to go to the doctor in the next couple of days and get my blood checked and, do all the stuff I usually do when things aren't going well. But, I guess the one takeaway I will bring along with all the learning experiences out of this is that, I'm a better man for finishing, even though it was rough. And it turned me inside out and it really ground me down.
It's, as you're describing this, a part of me is like, I always considered you to never have a down race, like being, following you for so long, and just knowing that even on bad and tough days, you still manage to come out, like you said, smiling, positive, having that energy, having the AJW personality there. So to hear this side of things and knowing that you're very fresh off this race, you said 41 hours or 40 some hours off after you crossed the finish line. I'm able to see here and go, man, this is how I felt at mile blank of Cascade Crest, or this is how I feel sometimes at the end of a 50 miler where maybe I was undertrained or something. A part of me is like, Andy is more real than ever right now, and I think that's pretty awesome. And like Scott says, 99.9% of people absolutely would have just said, I'm done. Like that's my race, and hopped in the car and gone back to Silverton and watched people finish. That's absolutely 100% true. And you didn't. Like, you got this thing done. And that's what I'm so excited about, is that you were expecting a completely different day.
Absolutely.
Like,
and you know what, Ethan,
other side of the planet, right?
I've made my living running these things on trying to eliminate every variable, taking care of nutrition and the right equipment and the right food and all of that. And I kind of pride myself on that. That wouldn't have mattered worth a lick. When the wheels started to fall off, they cascaded down those mountains like Kilian and Jason running down the hill. I mean, they fell off. And all I had was the small little thread of, just keep going. Just keep going. And I also did know, look, I haven't had a race like this before. Maybe there is something to be learned from this true suffering. Maybe, at the risk of being hyperbolic, maybe there's something biblical and Job-like here in a forced suffering, a forced death march to get through it. And maybe I won't know for 6 months, a year, or 5 years why this happened. But it happened.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I think I have to believe I'm going to be better for it. I have to.
And you will. There's no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind. If it's taken you this many years to have this sort of experience, that's pretty damn good. Those odds are pretty amazing. The fact that you managed to continue, pick up, and continue on, and like you said, it was all internal. It was all in your own mind. I think all of our live viewers can take something from this. Someone like Andy, who has finished every race he started and has always finished a race with a smile, jokes, sassiness. I always know Andy Jones-Wilkins to be the sassiest guy out there. We got to get you a shirt. We got to get you a shirt that says that. But for you to have such a day, but still pick yourself up out of that chair, I know you. We haven't been friends for 20 years, but I feel like I know you well enough where I can imagine and picture you sitting in this chair having this down, terrible moment, but then seeing you pick yourself up out of this chair and continue on. That's a powerful thing. And so for any of our live viewers to be able to take something, I think, from this experience, it's that no matter how low or how desolate you feel inside during a race like this, you still have something left. And Andy, it might have taken you 20 plus hours to finish those last 40 miles, but you had something left. You managed to do it. What were those last 10 miles like? That's what I'm really curious about. And you've worked so hard for so long on that day. Did the adrenaline ever kick in? Was there ever that, I'm almost done, I can finally just kind of let it out? Or did that not kick in till later or at all?
I'm glad you asked that. It was the final 9 miles. The point that Jason was talking about when Kilian and he crossed the creek, that's at Cunningham Gulch with 9 miles to go. 2 miles, literally straight uphill, Dives Little Giant. It's a 3,000-foot climb in 2 miles, followed by a 7-mile gradual descent, blending of roads and trails and so forth into the town of Silverton. About 2.5 miles before that aid station, you crest Green Mountain. At the top of Green Mountain, I laid down. My pacer said, you can't lay down. You can't go to sleep up here. It's 13,000 feet. You won't go to sleep. And if you do, it'll be a bad sleep. Let's get down. Scott Wolf, my dear friend, let's get down. We'll talk to Shelley. We'll take stock. We'll figure out what we're going to do. I said, I don't think I can climb little giant. I don't think I can do it. He said, I know you don't feel confident that you can do it. Let's get down. You might feel more confident at 10,500 than at 13,000. So we picked our way down. We arrived at Cunningham at about 4 p.m. So we have 10 hours on the cutoff, 10 hours to go 9 miles. I ripped my shirt off. Shelly came up to me. My boys had been following along on the tracker. They knew things weren't going right. Shelly talked to Scott. They went and talked to one another. I sat down. I started eating some food. I took my shoes off. I never once said the word drop, but sitting there in that chair and just staring at this 3,000-foot climb ahead, I was scared out of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in fear of failure. And I didn't care what anybody else thought. I didn't want to fail. So for the first time in my ultra running life, I ate 3 hot dogs. I went into the medical tent and I laid down and I took a nap. And I fell deep asleep. And while I was asleep, a cavalcade of legendary runners came through. Betsy Nye and Blake Wood and Scotty Mills. I was completely ignorant of them coming through because I was asleep. But when I woke up and learned of their going through, and I kind of said to myself, well, damn it, I can do that too. Well, it turns out that during that time, while I was napping, my crew and Scott were talking, and they decided that we were going to put a new pair of shoes on, and we were going to pack a bunch of food in my pack, and my oldest son, Carson, was going to pace me in. Now, my oldest son, Carson, is not a runner. He's a lacrosse goalie and a kayak guide and a farm worker. He's about 5'10" and 215 pounds. You would not confuse him for a runner. Big boy. But he also has a heart of gold. And he walked me up that mountain, one baby step at a time, for 3 hours and 15 minutes to go 2 miles. This was a mountain I'd done in training with Brian Powell in under an hour. Yeah. And he got me to the top. It was right at sunset. He took a selfie of us, my jacket. This is my 18-year-old son. He helped me find the markers. He told me that I wasn't hallucinating when I thought I saw my middle son in the reflector on the side of the trail. And we made our way home, walking every step for sure. But once we summited and took that sunset selfie, he even texted Shelly and said, we're at the top. I knew I had made it. Then I just took a deep breath and we just made our way back to Silverton. And not only was I a proud runner in that moment, but a proud father as well.
Absolutely. I'm getting teary-eyed too. I didn't expect the show to go this way, Andy. I'll be totally honest. Like I knew that you had a rough day. I didn't realize you had the roughest. And it's tough to see a man like Andy Jones-Wilkins talk about ultra running in this way, because we grow this bond with a sport that means nothing. The sport means nothing to anybody other than ourselves. We have our own individual journeys. We have our own spiritual connection to it. That I can talk about that forever, but there's no point, because everyone has their own connection to it. And I've always looked up to Andy as being this guy that just gets shit done. It doesn't matter what the day holds, but he gets it done. He has a smile on his face, and he's always cracking jokes and that kind of thing. I want to say something too, because within
minutes of kissing the rock, I hugged Dale. He knew I'd had a rough day. He congratulated me. He put his arm around me. We chatted a bit. I went and got my picture taken. And I walked into the gym, and who was there first? Jared Campbell, 10-time Hardrock finisher, 3-time Barkley finisher. Good friend of mine. A big hug, whispers in my ear, the tough ones are the ones that make us stronger. I walk over to the table, and there's Chrissy Mail. Been in the sport for 15 years. I've known her for a long time. UTMB winner, Hardrock winner, heart of gold, and guts of a champion. Says the same thing. AJW, so proud of you for gutting it out. You know, those are the type of things. The next morning, Blake Wood and Kirk App, 42 finishes between them. They come up to me and they're like, "You did it, man. You did it. Be proud. You're a hard rocker now." You know, that is getting it done. It's getting it done in a way I never predicted I would. But mind you, a year ago today, I didn't know if I'd run again. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Period. And instead, as I'm flying home tonight, I'm like, well, I guess this means I get another ticket in next year's lottery.
Absolutely.
We got to just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
I'm sorry, Andy. I'm going to use this show forever as a learning tool for those who maybe are unfamiliar with the pain and suffering that you go through in an ultra, because you, my friend, prove that no matter how bad it is, it's not over. And you're absolutely right. You earned it on Saturday. I honestly, I can't imagine how you're feeling now. You're still very close to this race. I don't know if you look back yet and see it as a success quite yet. You might say that. I don't know if you feel that way. It is a success. You just mentioned it. You didn't know if you would ever run again. And this is someone being told that something that's been a part of their life for so long may not be a part of their life in the same capacity.
Mm-hmm.
You proved against all odds that was not the case with the resurfacing training and doing one of the hardest, if not the hardest, ultra on the planet, and getting it done. By the way, you had hours to spare, Andy. Why the hell did you not milk it to the last minute? You had like 6 hours out there to do whatever you wanted. So at this point, I am like, I needed this. I needed this right now.
You know, Ethan, and Kim, you guys have read one of my taproom articles from time to time, and one of the things that I feel strongly about in ultra marathon running is that it is often a very apt metaphor for life. Whether it's things like running 100 miles is like living a lifetime in a day, as you experienced at Cascade, or whether it's, using patience and resilience and grit and hope and understanding and planning and, having the precision of an engineer with the dream of an artist. Those are the truth. That's the truth of this sport. And what I learned on Friday and Saturday is from even the deepest wells of despair. Yes, you need to sometimes say goodbye. You need to sometimes let stuff go. I had to let go of possibly catching Scott Jaime. I had to let go of possibly going under 30 hours. I had to let go eventually of even finishing before dark the second day, which is kind of a sub goal. Eventually, I had to let go of everything, but just putting one foot in front of the other. And sometimes you have to do that in life too. Maybe you have a relationship problem. Maybe you have some problems in your job. Maybe you have financial woes that bring you down. Maybe you're stuck taking care of an ailing parent and sick kids, and you're kind of stuck in the middle. And all you can put one foot in front of the other and keep going. And at least in an ultra like Hardrock, I was able to take that hour nap and reboot and eat my darling 18-year-old son lead me over that damn mountain. Because sometimes in life we don't even have that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? If that's what the takeaway from this Hardrock is going to be for me, then damn it, it's a success. Maybe the most successful one I've had. And that includes some course records, that includes some wins, that includes my Western States stuff. Maybe at the end of the day, this will be my most satisfying day of running ever. I just don't know it yet.
You will, man. And if anything, please know that the chat room and the world is inspired.
Yeah, there's lots of words of gratitude for you sharing your story. And we have Casey, the women's Western States champ, in the chat room saying, dang, this is so good. AJW, you've always had my respect, and now it's even greater. Huge inspiration. And that's kind of been straight across the board in the chat room, just by you sharing your story. Mm-hmm. This is helping a lot of people, and it's...
Whether you feel it yet, you will know that it is affecting everyone who's watching live, everyone who will watch this in an archive or listen to it. it's incredible, man. It really is. It's incredible, and it's helping. And you're going to do some amazing things just with this story alone and this day for so many people. So it may not feel like it now. It's fresh, but I guarantee you, man, you're doing some good with this. You're doing good.
Thank you for reading Casey's comment. Casey and I got to know each other when she came up to run her first Western States 3 years ago, and we chatted a bit in the high country and have remained friends. And she inspires me as well, you know, and ran an extraordinary race this year at Western States. I think inspired a lot of people to work harder and as a flatlander in the Midwest, Casey can bring it in the mountains. So it means a lot. I think too, you know, hearing from Casey and hearing from my comment about Job and maybe getting a little biblical, I think there's a big part of us that we need some faith here. Whatever your source of faith, it may be God, it may be just faith in nature or faith in the fact that the sun's going to rise tomorrow. You've got to have faith that everything is going to turn out okay if you just keep plugging along. And I think if you can run with faith, then you can certainly work with faith, and you can be a father and a wife and a husband and a mother and a son and a grandmother, and you can be a good worker, and you can be a good nurse and a good doctor and change the world. When you do what it takes to just put one foot in front of the other. If there's one thing I am so happy about, is that I flew home last night with a finish and not a ride home in the car.
Absolutely. There's a great comment in the chat room, how we need to get this conversation back to the hot dogs. I think I can't believe we glossed over, but I think, you know, this has been just an incredible discussion. We can get back to it, but did you really have 3 hot dogs and then take a long nap? Three hot dogs.
So absolutely. Here you go. So I'm up at the top with Scott, and I'm laying down. I want to go to sleep. He's like, well, we'll go down and get a good meal, and we'll talk to Shelly, and then we'll figure out how to get the 9 miles back. And I got down. So then Shelly and Scott had their talk. And they came to the car, and I said, I need a good meal. And Shelly's like, I got 3 hot dogs. And I was like, boom, there's a meal. I mean, by the way, Ethan and Kim, these were not your normal hot dogs. So they were normal hot dogs. But we put avocados on them. We put onions on them. I put some potato chips on them. You know, I was spreading all sorts of stuff. I'm surprised I didn't put like a gel on them. You know, I was just, and these were just the greatest hot dogs. Now, I'm not sure that's what I meant by a good meal when I was up at 13,000 feet, but I put down those hot dogs. I chased it with a Coke, cold Coke with ice and stuff. And took my shoes off, put a pair of flip-flops on, walked over to the tent, and took my nap. And
that's amazing.
Maybe I'm giving my son Carson too much credit. Maybe it was actually the hot dog.
You heard it here. Hot dogs will cure anything. It's hot dog. Were your boys and your family, were they at the finish line to greet you? And what was that moment like for you?
Yeah, so, I mean, my children are well known around the ultra world. They've, Carson, Logan, and Tully and Shelly have been my crew forever. And now they're grown, you know, 18, 16, and 13. Yeah. Well, since we were moving very, very slowly, then they had pretty good tracking this year with the spot device on each runner's pack. They could tell that when they would have to leave, we were camping on the edge of town, when they'd have to leave camp and come to the gym and watch me finish. But it was an absolute thrill to finish and have them there. They've been at just about every one of my finishes, and they were as excited for this one as all of them. And especially having gone through that experience at Cunningham. And at the end of the day, between the hot dogs and the nap, I was there about 2.5 hours. So it was a pretty long aid station stop. During which there was a lot of talking and rumination. Yeah, it was a thrill. And we didn't, you know, in contrast to what one might think, I actually didn't want the moment to end. I I had a rough race. It had taken 41, almost 42 hours. One might think I'd want to just get a shower and go to my tent, but I hung out a fair amount in the gym and saw the other, another hour's worth of finishers come in and talked to people and visited a bit and ate lots of food. And yes, definitely started to sit around with Shelley and Scott and talking about what could have caused this and what could we, there's still a mystery here, by the way, you guys. I still need to go to the doctor later this week. I want to get some blood taken. I want to figure out, is this all in my head, in my heart? Is there something in my body? Is there something? I know my hip can handle 100 miles now. So we've checked that box, but unfortunately we've unchecked a bunch of other boxes. And I think the journey for me every year is to see where that's going to go. So eventually we crawled back to my tent at like 3 a.m. And made it back for the awards, and it was very celebratory and fun. So while I know there was a fair amount of melancholy earlier in the interview, I want the viewers to know as well that there's nothing. There's no feeling like finishing a 100-miler, no matter how slow, no matter how difficult, no matter how challenging it is. And while it wrenched me to my core, I'm still extraordinarily satisfied by it.
Good. That was actually the next question, was if you've had a chance to feel the satisfaction of getting it done, or if it's still are you still sitting at mile 52 and thinking about this, or have you moved on beyond that and are celebrating the fact that it's done?
My middle son, Logan, who's the 16-year-old, who's a professional cyclist, or not professional, who's a budding professional cyclist. He's a racer. He wanted to have a moment with me alone before we started that last 9 miles. And he said, "Dad, you're not a failure if you finish. And you have 10 hours. And the race isn't a failure." I took that, and as we're driving to Denver yesterday on the way to the airport, he's like, "Dad, you seem sort of as content as you have in all the hundreds you've done." I'm like, Logan, I'm content because you said as long as I finish, I'm not a failure. Sometimes if your kid tells you that, that's all you need. Are there aspects of the race, of my preparation, the list is endless. Did I rush back too quickly from surgery? Did I train too hard? Did I let distractions of life get in the way when I should have not let them? Was I irresponsible in some way or another over the last few months? I don't know. Those answers are going to take time to flow.
For sure. Yeah.
What I do know is, at least with respect to Hardrock 100 2016, I succeeded.
And you have a plan to put your name back into the lottery to go back again.
I told Dale within a minute of finishing, I said, well, now I get another ticket for next year. Yeah, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid out there. You all know my love affair with Western States, and I pledged at that point when I finished my 10th there that I was going to stop running Western States, and I have. I've gone back the last 2 years, volunteering, pacing and crewing, those type of things. I'll continue to do that. But I've got a nice little spot in my heart now for Silverton and the San Juans, and you still have to get picked in the lottery. But if I get picked, I'll go back again. I certainly have some unfinished business. And for those people who know me out there, they know that I run pretty well. Once I get an answer to some of these questions, come the fall or winter, I think I'll be ready to see what next season holds. And
please keep us posted with if you discover anything, if it's overtraining or if there's blood stuff or whatever, because the audience is obviously going to be very curious what you find out, because I know of anyone, you're probably the most curious to see if there's anything. But I'm completely inspired, Andy, completely. And I mentioned it earlier very briefly, but I needed this show right now because I've had a couple of months of just bad running. Just things haven't been clicking, and the body hasn't been clicking. There's little things that are bugging me, and I just haven't had like a positive run in a long time. It's been unsatisfactory, lackluster for probably a good 6 months now, and I don't know why. I can't put a finger on it. I've had medical stuff and checked out and nothing, but at the same point, maybe it's just maybe it's just a something that happens. Maybe it's just a lull in life, or it's just an off couple of months. Because I listening to you talk, I needed this show, and I know a lot of our live viewers needed this too.
Well, Ethan, I wouldn't wish my race on anybody, because it was miserable. It was 22 hours of pure suffering. However, now that it's finished, gosh, I also, out of this other side of my mouth, might say this is good for people. 22 hours of suffering could help people. I mean, I remember when I finished second at Western States saying, I hope every runner someday gets that one feeling, whether it's, not second at Western States, not every, absolutely faster and faster and faster. And the nutrition works and it's clicking and you're ahead of your splits and you don't have to turn your headlamp on until, the last 5 miles when last year you did it. I want everybody to have that feeling. I've always wanted everybody to have that feeling. I kind of want everybody to have this one too, because it's the other side of the coin. And to get the full gamut of what 100-mile running can do to you and for you, now I know. Now I get it. I've been running 100-milers for 18 years. I finally get it today. On July 18th, 2016. That is a gift. I didn't feel like it was a gift when I was eating those 3 hot dogs, or slogging up that mountain, but I feel like it's a gift now.
Absolutely. We have a lot of questions in the chat room. Kim's been very patient. I'm sorry. I've been like, Andy, this is great, man. Like, this is helping me. Been very selfish. So I apologize. And for all who are watching live, we have your questions, and we're gonna definitely ask them in the post show here with Andy. Before we move into the post show, Andy, because I feel like we can still talk about a lot about this. What was your first post race indulgence? Did you grab a beer? Did you grab another hot dog? What was the first thing you did once you finished?
Oh, I had 2 hamburgers. I figured. I mean, come on, it's America. So I had 2 hot dogs at mile 91. I had to have some hamburgers when I finished. And I have to admit, I waited until about 9 in the morning after getting a little sleep to have my first beer. And that was probably good. I don't, well, you all know I love my beer, but I felt like after what I'd been through, I probably should sleep first. So the hamburgers helped me do that.
Awesome. Yeah, the chat room just was like, USA, America. Yeah. Yeah, gotta get that spirit out. But we have a huge international demographic as well, and they're loving it just as much.
So
go ahead.
There is a question in the chat room for you.
For me?
And this was asked a while ago, but people want to know, has Andy's story inspired you enough to put your name in for the lottery for next year?
Dale last week inspired me to put my name in for the lottery next year. I still have a ticket from Cascade, Andy, which I'm sure you're probably aware that Cascade, any ticket, last 2 years. And I regretted the day after the Hardrock lottery this year not putting my name in, because after finishing Cascade, I went, I'm not worthy of Hardrock. Why would I ever even think about Hardrock? I barely got it together enough for Cascade, like to get that done. Like I have no business being in the San Juans, so I didn't put my name in. The day after the lottery, I was like, why the fuck did I not put my name in? Like that is it is instant regret, because you go, this is the race that everyone wants to run. You earned a ticket.
Yeah.
You earned your right to put your name in. It's not like you're going to get drawn. And if you are, you have the right to say no. But I regretted it the second they did the lottery. So my Cascade Crest, and I'll probably get another finish of something between now and lottery, but I'm definitely putting my name in for next year's lottery.
I think for many people it takes years, so you might as well start.
Right. Yeah. Might as well. Exactly. And it's the same with Western. Of course, you're going to put your name in. You may not get selected, but now that they have the tickets, I think it's every year you get an additional ticket or something. Yes, I am putting my name in. No, I will not get drawn next year. That is the chances are what, like 3%, less than that at this point. But yeah, it's one of those. You got to.
If you do get drawn, it's all hot dogs all day for you.
And the thing is if it's an Andy Jones, hot dog starting at mile 2.
Yeah.
Even if the experience is what Andy is describing, which is the worst possible outcome, it is still living so much life in a tiny amount of time. And Andy will, if not already, has already become very aware of how much living he encountered in this very short amount of time. But I would take that experience over no experience, because you're not dying, but you are having a terrible day, and it is something that you can learn from, but it's also something others can learn from. And I think, Andy, honestly, tonight's show is going to be huge for our live and archive viewers and listeners, because we've had people on here talk about their suffering through certain races and being able to push through. And you hear elites talk about, I had a really rough day and I placed, 14th or something, or I placed 4th. Rough day, placed 4th. You're like, well, that's not really relatable to a lot of people. In this case, this is someone who has run 31 other 100-milers, comes into this one fully trained, after surgery, inspired and inspiring others, and has a bad day, but still gets it done.
Yeah.
So, Andy, that I have to thank you for just not stopping and embracing it, and now telling your story, which obviously gets us all a bit emotional, because we are so close to this sport, and it's tangible to us. But for you to share that experience with both Kim and myself, and also our live viewers, it's touching, and man, it's fucking inspiring. So thank you. Thank you.
Chris in the chat room says most inspirational show to date.
I'm right there with you. Yeah. We've had a bunch of inspiring shows, but Andy, this man, what the first 30 minutes was Jason talking about how he had the race of his life, which I'm like, this is incredible. And the last 45 minutes have been Andy talking about the worst day of his life. This is what Hardrock is. Yeah. This is what Hardrock is. It's amazing.
I guess the last thing I want to say, and it's related to all this, I think the greatest measure of a man or woman's strength, inner strength, is being able to open themselves up to vulnerability, to just be open to the fact that there's something that's going to get you sometime. Even the most confident, smart, well-read, charismatic person eventually is going to be brought down. And if they've been able to open themselves up to vulnerability, they're going to be better for it. And whether that comes out for me at Grouse Gulch, when I had to walk the downhill that all my rivals were running, or whether it came out on that hill when I laid down and my pacer told me not to, or whether that vulnerability came out when I said, give me those hot dogs and then I'm taking a nap. If we as humans can make ourselves vulnerable, we can then become better humans. It's pretty simple. And there are few places in life now. I mean, look at modern parenthood. Look at modern education and modern schooling. Look at modern religion. Look at other institutions in our lives which are so designed to protect people from failure and adversity, and not wanting to be made vulnerable. You know what? I was stripped raw. If the people who knew me for my 10 finishes at Western States, that cocky Andy Jones-Wilkins who walked around Squaw Valley, if they saw me at mile 91 at Hardrock the other day, they would have seen an open, raw, vulnerable guy. And damn it, thank God for that.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're going to wrap up the main show here now with Andy.
People are now chanting AJW for president.
Yeah, we could really use an AJW for president right now. With all the things that are going on in the world, and all the tragedy and all there's just so much negative stuff out there. It's honestly, this is just such a refreshing reminder that we are humans, and that we live moment to moment. And Andy lived so much life in a very short amount of time. Like, these 41, almost 42 hours in the whole scheme of life are nothing. And it's like this for every ultra. When you're in it, it seems like a lifetime. When you're out of it, it really is a tiny footprint in the whole scheme of things. But the reality is you live so much in that tiny footprint. And I don't know. I feel like we needed this right now. The ultra viewing community and any runner who's watching who may not be an ultra runner or anything, I hope you guys got something out of this, because I sure as hell did. Where Kim and I have just been like nodding, like the whole yes. And keep talking. Don't let Andy stop, please. Keep talking. This is like inspiring us. We're going to move into the post show. This is what we do every week. The post show is where we can kind of rapid fire questions, because a ton of questions have come in through through the live chat, but I just didn't want to stop Andy, and I didn't want to stop because I was just like inspired. We're going to get to those questions here in the post show with Andy, but honestly, man, thank you so much for taking the time to do this show tonight. Thank you for being patient up top with Jason, and you're always invited back to this show, Andy, forever. This tonight gave you the golden ticket. This is your golden ticket, which gets you a free entry into any Ginger Runner Live forever.
Well, I really appreciate it. And before we go to Ethan and Kim, thank you. And Ethan, by the way, you've really raised the game of the show by having Kim on the set now. It's much better than when it was just you.
Fully aware of that. It allows me to keep my eyes on our guest and also pull in the chat room. But
the other thing I would like, sometime later in the fall, as I do get some answers, and I think I will get some answers. It would be great to come on again, and maybe there's some other people out there who've had similar experiences who might be in touch with you or me, and because I don't think I'm alone in this. I'm just a little bit more of a public figure, but I don't think I'm alone in being a person who is stubborn and pig-headed and sometimes has to just eat hot dogs and take a nap to get through a 100-miler. And I think there's probably some inspiring stories out there in the field as well that maybe we could tap into over time.
I'm totally game, 100%. The audience definitely wants AJW back, and we'll get him back. So Andy, you and I can obviously talk about that as far as maybe scheduling something in the future, move this fall. I totally agree with you. I think that's great. For the live audiences, Andy, where can people find you on social media so they can continue to ask the questions that maybe don't get asked tonight? Where can they find you?
Well, on Twitter and Instagram, Jones-Wilkins, pretty simple, and on Facebook, and then my Friday column on iRunFar every Friday morning, AJW's Tap Room, iRunFar.com. And this Friday, I will be writing a report about the race. So I'm going to try and get that done tomorrow. I imagine watch the show tonight, you'll hear similar themes in that report, but it's a fun outlet on iRunFar for me to write every Friday. I've been doing it now for about 4.5, almost 5 years. So that's where you can find me.
Great. It's a great column. If you haven't read it, if you are not privy, go check it out. I catch up on it all the time. It's fantastic. It's well written. It's funny, and it's always very, very fun. That will wrap up our main show tonight. I can't believe it. We had Jason Schlarb, champion of Hardrock 100, co-champion with Kilian Jornet, who unfortunately we could not get tonight for obvious reasons. The traveling man himself. He's probably already on his way to Mount Everest at this point. Maybe he's already halfway up. I don't know. But then we also had Andy Jones-Wilkins, and these two stories from the same race are pretty damn incredible. Yep. And I'm very, very happy to have had tonight's show happen, because I think it will help and inspire everybody. We're going to do a post show with Andy Jones-Wilkins. So stick around after these little credits here. We're going to stick around and basically rapid fire the questions that you guys have been asking of him, and we'll keep him for a couple of minutes. So thanks again for watching, guys. Every single Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Come back for Ginger Runner Live. We'll have new guests every single week. And if you have not already, the Streamies, which are the Oscars of the online content world. Go vote for the Ginger Runner YouTube channel. Last year we were amongst big company. We were the only sports channel nominated that had under 1 million subscribers. Yeah. Which is incredible. The 4 other channels were like Red Bull, Dude Perfect. Like, it's incredible. So we got nominated last year. This year, I'd really like to win it, and I think we can do it, because I don't think any of the other people have finished a 100-miler or run an ultra at all. So go vote. All the links are on the Facebook. So facebook.com/thegingerrunner. There's all the links there for documentary, best channel, all that good stuff. consider that. And if you'd like to help keep the lights on and the mics hot, go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. It's for as little as $1 a month. You can help keep this channel alive, help films come every single week, and reviews and all that good stuff. Okay, cool. Stick around. Post-show comes with Andy Jones-Wilkins right after this.
Ginger Runner.
Awesome. Okay. The live audience has been so patient, Andy. They have a list of questions. They've been like, how did Andy do this? And what about this? So, Kim, what do we got for Andy?
So there are a fair number of questions.
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, the live chat was going crazy. They love themselves some AJW.
Okay, well, look, I have plenty of time. So as long as you guys have time, why don't we just fire away?
Yeah, we don't do anything on Monday nights. This is our Monday night. By the way, I honestly I don't know who sent it to me. That's what's funny.
You didn't save me a taste?
Oh man, no, there's a little I'm sorry. It was the story. I just couldn't stop. I don't know who sent it to me, but it's a special release from Ninkasi. It's the Beer Run IPA. It's their running specific IPA. It's very tasty. And it's the official beer of Tracktown USA 2016. So I just got this in the mail from somebody.
It must have been delicious.
Kim, what were you sipping on in the can there?
It's a Summer Avery Brewing seasonal selection. It's a peach saison.
Peach saison is good.
A little Belgian. Well, I'm going with an old California favorite, the little something something from.
Dude, so good.
I love a little something, and I had a long travel day and so forth. So thought it'd be nice to have a little before I go back to work tomorrow.
And Lagunitas is consistently
really
solid.
Good.
Consistently solid, yeah.
So good. All right, let's get some questions to Andy.
All right, questions for Andy. Question from Nathaniel. How do you prepare mentally for Hardrock 100?
The mental training is a huge part of it. I think it's break it down into really small chunks. There are 9 big climbs and descents, and so you just do it that way, and it's almost like 9 races. And so once I mentally do that, then I think about training in those chunks. So do a 3,000-foot climb and a 3,000-foot descent, or so on and so forth. You also have to mentally train for staying up all night. Even if you're fast, like Kilian and Jason, right? They didn't finish until 4 in the morning. So you have to mentally train yourself for that. And I think the last piece you have to mentally train yourself for is that there's going to be something that's going to go wrong. Your crew might get a wrong turn and not make it to the aid station. You might get lost. I mean, the course markings are very good, but it's very remote. So you need to be prepared mentally for getting off course and not getting knocked around by the unexpected happening.
Nice.
You were talking about going off course. There's a question from Glenn in the chat room. How significant a challenge are the route finding and exposed sections in Hardrock compared to other hundreds?
We talked a bit to Dale about this, and they kind of pride themselves on having the course be known by the runners. So yeah, how did you get through it?
Well, certainly there's an expectation that the runners have researched the course. And in many cases, their runners are strongly implored to spend some time on the course. The race does organize course marking days for the 2 weeks preceding the race. And if you're a first-time runner, I'd strongly suggest, if your schedule allows, for you to get out and take part in that. There are two general areas where people go off course, and it's interesting because they're on 2 ends of the spectrum. The one end is at the very high country above tree line, where there may not even be trails, where you're basically following kind of cross-country routes, a blend of grass and rock and so forth.
Huh.
And there are places, Putnam Basin is one, Oscars Pass is one. And in a snow year, there are probably a half a dozen more where, it all kind of looks the same, and you have to know the contour of the mountain where you're supposed to go. So it's a feel thing. So on the most high country areas, say 12.5 and above, you need to pay very close attention. And then there are several places low, say 9,000 or below, where you transition from road to trail or trail to road. And it's very much like, the stuff you're used to in the Pacific Northwest or in California or so forth, where a lot of races are a blend of fire roads and trails. The thing is, at Hardrock, you don't do that very much. You're mostly up in the mountains, but you get down and all of a sudden you're bopping along on a road, and all of a sudden you're running fast for the first time all day. And you just blow right. I did this going into Sherman Aid Station. I just blew right by the marker. I probably went a mile past the marker until I realized I hadn't seen another mark up the road. And I was like, I missed the marker. It's right here. And went down the single track trail and into the aid station. So, if you get lost, it's your fault. But you certainly want to make sure that you are familiar with those type of areas as well. So super high and super low.
Got it. Yeah. Did you have any issue? I mean, you're obviously very familiar with the course. Did you have any major issues, or do you know of anyone else that did?
Well, I got lost that one time going into Sherman. So I probably lost about 15 minutes there. Just went down too far, realized, came back. And then I lost some time on a high country ridge. This year's race, I didn't hear very much of people going off too far. Last year, there was quite a bit more snow and going in the other direction. So Oscar's Pass comes at mile 70, from mile 72 to mile 80. And it's a really snowy scramble. A lot of runners got lost on that last year. So a lot of it, in the high country at least, depends on the snow. But I didn't hear of I didn't hear of anybody really sort of losing their place or anything like that because of getting lost.
Got it.
And since we're talking about losing your place, Jay Morris in the chat room asked, Andy, what would your ultimate race be to enter? Barkley?
Oh, yeah.
No. Although Gary Cantrell has sent me an annual invitation every year to.
Oh.
No, not an invitation to run, an invitation to write an essay to see if he would let me run.
Got it.
No, Kim, it's UTMB. I would, and mainly my wife and family would love to go over there. The challenge there is that it's the end of the summer, right when I'm starting school. And, third weekend in August is a really tough time for a school administrator. So I might have to save UTMB till I'm retired.
Would you run just the UTMB trail, or you want to be a part of the race?
Oh, I want to be a part of the race. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think it's moved up a lot on people's bucket lists for sure, and it just seems like an incredible race to do. Of all the races I haven't done, it's by far I've done all the Grand Slam races. I've done Hardrock. I've done half a dozen other hundreds here in the United States. That's the one race I'd like to do more than any other. Absolutely. What else we got, Kim?
A couple of gear questions in the chat room, one from Pete and one from Kimosabi. Pete's question was not a gear question. Question from Devin, which kind of shoes did you wear? And question from Kimosabi, what kind of GPS watch did you use, if you used one?
I used Hoka Challengers, which were great. The Challenge 2, that they would have enough grip on the really shaly, sketchy downhills, but they worked fine. With Drymax socks, they were fine getting wet and dry and going through all the creeks and snow and so forth. So Challengers were a good combination with Drymax socks. I used the Sunto 3-peak watch, Sunto Ambit 3P watch, but even that, the battery ran out, I think, after about, the race I had, the battery was going to run out no matter what, right? It was not going to make it to the hot dogs, that's for sure. And frankly, I didn't want it to, right? But I love that watch. So I know several people. Brian Powell, for example, used his, and he got all 33 hours of his finish on it. So it's a great watch, the Sunto Ambit 3-peak.
Yeah, that's what I rock. It's been the best. Yeah, and I the times that I've used it for long days, I usually bring a little USB charger with me sometimes. But you probably, did you do that at all, or did you just set it to do the more infrequent GPS check-ins?
I set it for the infrequent check-ins, but I set it for a 32-hour finish. Maybe I was a little too ambitious. So.
And Pete's question was, what kind of beer did you have? So he was talking about that first post-race 9 a.m. beer that you had.
Oh yeah, what was that?
It was a Dale's Pale Ale. And Oscar Blues. It's been one of my go-tos now for a couple of years, and it's interesting because they started in Colorado, but they have a really big successful brewery here in the East in North Carolina, and there's a lot of debate over which one's better because they've got the Colorado water and they've got the North Carolina water. I wanted to make it with 100 miles on my tongue. And I have to say, with all due respect to my East Coast friends, I liked the Colorado one better.
Boom.
Yeah.
Just dropped it. Oh, poor East Coasters. East Coast, Beast Coast. They're going to be so mad, Andy.
Oh, no, you got to see my tattoo.
What is it? Oh, bring it in.
It's a Beast Coast tattoo.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I for some reason, I thought I saw photos of you this weekend with that, and for some reason I was like, oh, he must have just gotten that, like not an iron-on, but a temporary tattoo or something, like someone made that.
Had it at Western States and had it at Hardrock. Yeah, Beast Coast.
That's a real thing. That's awesome. That's a good one. I like that.
I guess I'm stuck here for a little while now.
I was really curious. So most people, Silverton's not a huge town as far as hotels and places for people to stay and stuff like that. You mentioned that you were camping. So is that what you did? Did you camp the weeks leading up to it, or did you use a hotel or hostel or any sort of showering facilities or anything like that, or did you just camp out just for the race? How did that work?
Well, we camped. So we camped at a place where you pay to camp, right? So it's called Silverton Lakes Campground at the end of town, and they have a laundry room and Wi-Fi and clean showers and stuff like that. So yes, we're sleeping in a tent, but we're also having modern conveniences. Then there are people who get hotels. There are many people rent their houses. Silverton people will rent a house for the week and so forth. So, I mean, the race, the Hardrock, Silverton is all about Hardrock for the whole week leading up. But my family and I, we're just campers. So that's just kind of what we've done. And then, the only hitch I do is on the night before, instead of sleeping in the tent, I go to a friend's house and sleep in a bed for the night before.
Got it. That's awesome. That's good to know. We had so many friends that were heading out there as spectators, crew, pacers, and it just seemed like anyone can camp there. Mm-hmm. You just go out of town a little bit, you can camp on the side, and there's people that set up little communities for camping and stuff. And I was like, that's so awesome. Does everyone do that? Yeah, it sounds like everyone just kind of does the free-for-all sort of party, not necessarily party, but like a community of just hanging out and camping and enjoying the wilderness together. It just seems incredible. It seems like
I have to say that one of the worst experiences for a Hardrock runner is hanging out at a campsite or a rental house where everybody else is not a runner. I would say, or they're runners, but they're not in the race, right? I would say at any given time, you would show up at a party at a house, say on the Wednesday before the race, and there's like 2 people running the race and like 40 people at the party.
Yep. Loud, constant noise, and just no one else is sleeping. Everyone else is partying.
Not a care in the world.
Not a care in the world. Their ticket did get drawn. What else we got, Kim?
Question from Amber Nixon in the chat room. How many years have you been running?
So I started running 27 years ago when I was 21 years old. And I ran my first ultra 24 years ago, 50K in Southern California, and then kind of built my way up from there and ran my first 100 almost 16 years ago now at the Angeles Crest 100 in 2000. So, more than half my life.
Wow, I didn't realize that. The timeline is very similar. What was your first 50K? Southern California, was it Ray Miller? Which one was it?
It was the Holcomb Valley 50K up at Bear Lake. I'm not sure it's still in existence anymore. It was actually a 33 miler. And back in the day, I ran it with some of those old time Montreal guys like Ben Hyen and Al Valverde. And that's where I met Tommy Nielsen and Jeff Kozak and Scott Mills and Rob McNair and other Southern California crew. When I lived in Arizona, traveled out to Southern California a lot to train just to get out of the heat a little bit. And so, yeah, kind of cut my teeth in that area between Southern California, Southern Nevada, and Arizona.
Yeah, and to make AC 100 your first 100 that's a monster. The course has changed now.
Yeah, it's a tough first one.
Very tough.
It's a great race, and I know they're having a political battle right now over the wilderness area there, and whether or not they're going to be able to continue accessing certain parts of the course. I hope that and try and help them out, because that's one of the classics. I mean, with the exception of the four Grand Slam races and Hardrock, I would say the big six are, Hardrock, Angeles Crest, and the 4 Grand Slam races. And Angeles Crest is such a pure point-to-point course, from the mountains of Wrightwood to the plains of Pasadena. It's just it's an amazing race.
I've run every foot of it over the course of many runs, but it is by far, it's a glorious course, brutal and unrelenting, and it will not let up for those who run it.
It will not.
I just can't imagine that as the first 100. That's brutal,
that's the course that gave me acute renal failure back in 2004. That was and it was your unrelenting point is a good one, because I went up and over Chantry, up to the Mount Wilson toll road, then down, and then it was like that Sam Merrill. And going to Sam Merrill, I saw the guy in front of me. I was trying to catch him, and I just trashed my quads. And next thing you know, I was peeing brown and in the hospital. And the rest is history.
Yeah, that's we've run that descent a couple of times. It's awesome, but not at mile like 75 or whatever.
No, it's not.
On fresh legs, it's awesome.
It's on paper, it's awesome. Any last questions for Andy?
Another question from Kimosabi75. Which is your next race? Next 100 for redemption?
Oh, yeah. What do you got next? Or are you taking a break for a bit?
Oh, my favorite ultra question. What's next? I think what's next is to figure out if I have anything going on. If what happened to me this weekend is in my heart and not necessarily in my physiology, I'll probably jump into something this fall here in Virginia. Probably not 100. The Grindstone 100 is a Hardrock qualifier out here. I've flirted with maybe running it. I still might, but our local running club does a big aid station up there at mile 30 and 72, which is it's an out and back course. So, mile 72 is a good aid station because people are really hating life there. And it's kind of nice to have so I might do that. There's Mountain Masochist, a great 50 miler. I've never trained exclusively for a 50 miler before. And then I'll see how things unfold with the lottery at the beginning of December, because that'll then chart out next summer. But, I want nothing more than to go back to Hardrock. If I didn't go back to Hardrock, my 100 next summer would either be, I've got a couple of classics that are on my mind, Bighorn in Wyoming and Cascade Northwest. So my in-laws live up in the Northwest. So if it's not Hardrock, it'll be one of those two. Cascade
Crest, just do it.
Yeah.
I'm telling Andy to run it. You've already run it, right? You've already done it.
No, I haven't. No, that's why I'm saying. So I have this because I've done all these sort of these tier A hundreds like Hardrock and Western States. I've never really done, and Wasatch, I've never done that. And I don't mean to when I call them tier B, I'm not saying they're like lame races, but these races like Bighorn and Cascade and the Bear, and I mean, those are three
smaller.
The smaller, boutique-y, and they have this great following and so forth. So I just can't do that many hundreds in a year. So, I'll put my eggs in a basket, but as soon as I end up not getting into a lottery, I mean, maybe I'll, there's a group from Virginia that goes to Bighorn every year. So, I'd be interested in that, but I've heard so much about Cascade that it might be a tough call. And, Cascade's getting to the point where it fills pretty quickly. So, I think it'll be one of those.
Yeah, both of those are on. Cascade's the race that I want to get my 1,000-mile buckle at. I want to get my bucket. Yeah, that'll be the race I want to get my 1,000-mile buckle. I just feel like it's gnarly, man. It's gnarly. And there is a 50K that runs the last 30 miles of it's brand new this year. It's called the Needles 50K, and it is the first 2 miles have 2,700 feet of gain.
Do they really?
Mile, yeah, the first mile has like 1,400 of those or something. Like, I mean, it's so dumb. It's so dumb, but amazing. Like Cascade Crest, I want to go back to every year. This year, I'm not because of Trans Rockies and there's other things, but I might go as a spectator. I think we've already talked about doing that. But yes, if I could say anything to help influence you, I would say Cascade, and I would do anything to help you if you.
I was gonna say, and if you do go to Cascade, if one of us aren't already running it, we'll definitely come and support you in any way that we can.
If you needed something, if that helped sway you in any capacity, which I doubt it would. Yeah. But yeah, it's totally worth it. And this question has been going on in the chat room for a long time. Is Andy Jones-Wilkins a Pokemon Go or a Pokemon No? I don't think he has any idea what we're talking about.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
There is an app it's called Pokemon Go that people have been using to catch Pokemon. The live audience, if Andy doesn't know what the app is, then that question is unfortunately moot.
Pokemon No.
It's a Pokemon No, which means Andy doesn't know what the app is. And most people have been living in Silverton when Pokemon Go came out.
And he's been a little busy.
He's been busy.
Come out.
It's a week old. It is a week old, Andy. You are not missing anything. But I guarantee you, now that you're back in civilization, you will see the onslaught of news articles regarding this app. You'll catch on here real quick. But Andy has been in the mountains for a week, so.
I've been kind of off the grid. But is it similar to being like a Tigger or an Eeyore? Is that sort of like what it is, or? Like,
I don't know what I don't know what that means. It's a phone app that people are using to. You're trying to in real world. You're trying to find these little creatures. Like you can hold your camera up and basically find things. So people are going outside and doing this in parks and like playing it in the streets, and it is getting people outside and getting people who don't normally exercise to exercise, which is crazy. People are walking and like 6 to 10 miles a day who don't normally do anything. But because it's so popular, it's huge. People are either on the Pokemon Yes side of the fence or the Pokemon No, like get it out of my feed, out of my timeline. And
Got it. I see. All right.
You're forgiven because you've been in Silverton for a week. So
I can't wait to learn about it. I'm sure the kids at school will teach you about it.
They will.
You're going to learn about it tomorrow as soon as the kids. Oh, I guess kids are out of school.
Yeah.
Yeah, the kids don't show up for another month or so.
For another month, yeah. Any last questions for Angie?
I got a good question from Raul in the chat room, AJW. If you could make a race anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Good question.
Oh gosh, so you all know that I used to live, or people may not know, but I used to live in the Idaho mountains, Ketchum, Idaho, and north of Ketchum and Stanley, Idaho. I would love a pure 100-mile loop through the Sawtooth and Pioneer Mountains, and I think it could be every bit as challenging as Hardrock without quite the net. Tall peaks there are 12 and 12.5 and so forth. Such a beautiful country. There'll be a lot of issues around grazing with the sheep industry out there and ranchers and so forth, but definitely the Pioneer Mountains and the Sawtooth Mountains of central Idaho.
That's not the first time I think we've had someone talk about the Idaho mountains.
And we've had friends that just moved to Idaho, and the pictures of the mountains that they're posting.
They're nuts.
It looks amazing.
It looks amazing.
Oh, yeah.
They're no joke out there.
Yeah, if you look over my shoulder, well, it's pretty far away. There's they are no joke. There's huge vertical. They go from, valleys that are sitting at about 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 up to peaks of 12. Oh, they're gorgeous. Gorgeous. And remote. I mean, in contrast to Colorado, where there's a lot of mining trails, I mean, you're talking about game trails out there. So it's it would be an awesome 100.
Yeah, do it. I'd run the Andy Jones-Wilkins Classic. That sounds awesome. Or the Invitational 100 or whatever it is. Yeah. Andy, thank you for taking the time out tonight. I know that you have to be at work tomorrow, and you've had, I can imagine, a very busy weekend, or at least a lot of traveling, and you probably just need to kick your feet up and enjoy a beer. Thank you Andy. Tonight's show was awesome, man, and it really was by far the most special Ginger Runner live. I mean, I'm like, you brought us all to tears, dude, and it was such an incredible story, and I hope you are able to kind of figure out what happened, or take it and use it as fuel for the next one. Man, it was awesome. It was awesome to hear you talk, and like super inspiring. Thank you.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, Kim. And I look forward to getting some answers and sharing them with folks. It was a weekend I'll carry with me always. I
can only imagine. And much love to your family. They were obviously there to support you the entire time, and your pacers and your crew. And it was just a great story, man. A really great story. And I know that all the live viewers just flipped out. You inspired a lot of people tonight, Andy. A lot of people. So thank you. Remind people once again where they can find you in case they have more questions that maybe we're not asked.
On Twitter and Instagram at Jones-Wilkins, just all one word, Jones-Wilkins, and then on Facebook, Andy Jones-Wilkins, and of course at the tap room on irunfar.com, AJW's tap room.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for watching live tonight and sticking around for the post show. You are all fantastic people. Tune in next week, Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, for more Ginger Runner Live with myself and
me.
It was awesome tonight. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next week. That's it. Good night.